Hi everyone. So this card I have sort of done some prep work on, and yes, it's a strange combination because this is quite bright pink, but I wanted to show you how to make the frame and the embossed bit. I decided to do an embossed resist with some watercolour, so hopefully you can see that. I can't see exactly what you can see, but basically let me start at the beginning. Right, so first of all, these are all the bits that I use, so I'll go through each one. So this card is 8.5 by 8.5 by 5.5. It's called and folded at 4 1/4, so it's just a top folding card, or sort of landscape version. And it's in Melon Mumbo Stampin' Up! Ink. This was a piece of watercolour paper. I used the W.H. Smith's watercolour paper, so it's just like a slightly creamy textured paper. And what I used to cut the frame was the Lawn Fawn large stitched rectangle dies. And I've used the two largest ones, so these two. And when this was one piece, what I did to make the frame was I laid this down on the piece of cardstock, and then I laid this piece, ooh, it won't stay where I want it to stay right now, but I laid this piece on top and that way, and I just lined up so that it looked like it had an equal distance, and then I just used some washi tape. You could use low tack tape or masking tape, but just make sure it's very low tack, otherwise it'll peel your paper up. And then I put it through the die cut machine, and when it comes out, you've got a panel that is this size, which is essentially the center of your frame, and then you will have your frame. So that's how I've made the frame. I know Lawn Fawn have some frame dies, and also if you've got these small rectangles excuse me, you can they've got the small ones are like the in-between sizes, so you could make a narrower sort of half that size border as well, frame, but I wanted it to be quite a chunky looking frame. So that's the first thing to make the frame. Then on the frame itself, I used the diagonal stripe Stampin' Up! Background stamp. And what I did to do this, there's a couple ways you can do this. What I did was I took it off this sheet. This is just a backing sheet. This is clingy, right? Like you would on any cling stamp. Normally you would stick it to an acrylic block, but if you just stick it straight to your mat, it will hold it in place, so it won't move when you're working with it. But you don't have to do that. You can just leave it on its backing sheet and work with it that way, which is what I did, but I took the backing sheet off just so it wouldn't move. Inked up around the edges because obviously I had a frame, so I didn't need to ink the center of the stamp. And then I put this down carefully, made sure that I was getting the whole pattern, because depending how big this piece is. And then while I had it down like so, I took a piece of copy paper, carefully put that on top of this, and then made sure you can see it and you can feel it as well when you're doing this. Held this piece in place and just rubbed over the copy paper, being sure not to move this underneath, and that way you then get your stamped image on your frame or whatever you're stamping. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to use one of these, a stamp my pajamas in the reflection, lovely. A stamp positioning tool and providing your stamp will fit in there, and that way you can get you can keep stamping it over and over until you get the impression that you want. So there's that option as well. Let's see. So that was the background for the frame, and I used, where is it? Oh, I used cracked pistachio. Doesn't that sound lovely? Distress oxide ink to stamp it. I just thought, as it turned out, and I'll show you what I used to do this in a minute. The colour that's on here, this green, matches quite well with the cracked pistachio. That's why I chose the cracked pistachio, which I actually chose after I'd done this bit. So I'm kind of doing this in reverse for you. So that was the ink I used. This panel, I actually taped it down along the stitch line. There's a stitched line, I don't know if you can see that. There's a stitched line here, and I actually used that as kind of a guide. And I was going to try and see if I could just get that white border. As it turned out, the tape lifted slightly, and it's given it this sort of watercolory look to it, which I actually really like, so I'm quite happy with it. But what I did start with was, I used Best Gifts stamp set, Stampin' Up! Stamp set, and I used the biggest image, which is the Merry Christmas. Excuse me, it's looks like an old toy store window, what do they call it, like a window display kind of thing. So that's what I used for that. And I used these three things. I used this is a EK Success powder tool, and I rubbed that all over the cardstock before I stamped it. I actually used the stamp positioning tool to make sure that I got a good impression, because there's a lot of detail in the stamp. And then I used Versamark, which is a clear sticky ink, basically. It's kind of like a glue. It's like a, it's not really a glue, but it's a sticky ink. And then I used, first time I've used this, I used the white Stampin' Up! Embossing powder, and I actually really like it. Even though this had a lot of detail in it, it seemed to pick up all the detail, so I was quite impressed by that. And then I heat set that, and then I used a palette. This is just I actually these were, I cut this down, but these were, you know, the grey mat that I usually use on some of my other videos. Excuse me. It came in a pack of 6. It's actually for the kitchen. It's got like a non-stick here, which to be honest didn't really work on my surface. I used to slide around anyway. But it's supposed to have like a non-slip surface on the one side. But I thought it'd be really good as a background, or if I want a watercolour or something. So the white one I actually cut up and use them as like watercolouring palettes. So they're really handy for that. But you could use a tile. You could even use a white piece of cardstock and an acrylic block and have the white paper underneath. Just so that the idea with the white is that you can see the colour as true to its colour, if that makes sense. So I used one of those, and I finally dug these out again. My Faber-Castell, not sure if I'm saying that right, Gelatos. I love saying that word. And this is just the 12 set. But I actually, and I don't normally, not anymore anyway, I don't normally buy the 12s because, like I've found with my Zig markers, there's not enough colours next to each other to blend with and things like that. Whereas these are pretty good. There's 2 greens, 2 blues, 2 purples, 2 pinks, your red, orange, yellow, etc. So, excuse me. So these, it actually turned out quite well. And all I did was I just smushed a bit on the, actually if you've never seen a gelato, I'll just show you what it looks like. If I can. Oh, come on. Right, so you get a paintbrush with it as well. There's 2 yellows in here. But basically, just find a colour that you'll be able to see. So that's what they look like. They look like funny little, I want to say lipsticks. They're not lipsticks. and they're just like a pastel-y kind of thing, but you can, when you put them on your pages, you can rub them in kind of like pastels, I suppose. But you can also smush them on there and then activate them with water. I do have some water soluble oil pastels, and those are brilliant as well. But anyway, this is what I used, and I just put a load of different colours on here, and in the end I used the red. So I used that one, and I actually used this darker green, which turned out to be that colour, which is very similar to the pistachio. And what I did was I put the water over the top first, and then I mixed up a bit of water with it on the palette, and then dropped it into the actual water here and let it kind of do its thing. And then I just made sure it blended a bit in the middle. And that was it. Overnight, I put these two together when they were dry, and I actually put this acrylic block, a big acrylic, you can put it book over the top, and I actually put this over the top to try and flatten them a bit. So that worked out pretty well. It's not completely flat, but that's okay. So, let's see. Now, I wanted to talk about 3 different ways that you could do something with this now. So you've got your card base, you've got your frame, and you've got your panel. First thing you can do, you can just line it up with your card front and stick it down, and stick that one down and just have it flat. Let me zoom in for you. Right, so you could just have it flat like that, and that'd be lovely, right? Or, which we're going to do on this card, you can stick this panel down flat and then raise this to give it just a different effect. The third option that you have is to stick that panel down, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute, or the easiest way to do it. But the other option that you have is to, on the frame, use a piece of acetate. I've even, when I've been desperate, because I don't have any acetate, these are just the little pockets, like card pockets that you would, like cello bags, that's the word I'm looking for. I've even cut one of these down and used that. So it is thinner and it's not as sturdy, so depending what you put in there, you know, it might not last as long. Acetate's obviously stronger. But I would line the back with some strong tape, put your piece of acetate there, and that creates a window, so it's not going to be, it'll be a solid piece then. Then I would put some foam tape on here, at least 2 high. So double up your foam tape, add some sequins or flat embellishments, or you could put glitter on there, and then pop that over the top, and that will create a shaker card. If you were going to have something bigger than, say, glitter or sequins, sort of chunkier, maybe you want to put some beads in there or something like that, then you could even go 3 layers high in your foam. But obviously bear in mind, the chunkier you go, the more you might have to pay for postage and stuff like that. So, but if you're hand delivering, I mean, it's fine. So what we're going to do, I'm going to get some adhesive, that would be useful. Oh, where is it? And my foam. Right, so first thing I want to do is I want to stick this panel in. So the easiest way that I find to do this is to line the frame up with your card base. Probably easier to do it something like that. Right, might be slightly off there. Why can't I get this? Honestly, it's like being on live telly, but not. Right, so you've got that there. Then what I would do is just put your adhesive inside here and then while you're still holding that, line it up, sorry, kind of like a puzzle piece, and just fit it in there. And then you can take your frame off. So then you know that it's in the spot where you need it for your frame. Like I say, you can stick that straight flat down there and it would be a lovely card. Oh, get off. But we're not going to do that. Not for this one anyway. So we're going to stick some foam on here. Is that going to fit on there? No. And I'm just going to do it one level high, because I'm not actually going to, and I'm going to cut it in half if I can. Doesn't stick to my nails. And that way, ooh. See, you're trying to multitask and I can't talk suddenly. That way, because we're only doing one layer, it doesn't need to be, what am I trying to say, guys? You don't need it too high. You can do it too high, you know, it's your card, but I wouldn't bother. If you're not putting anything in there, then don't worry about it. So I'm just going to get this along the edges here. I clearly cut it a bit too long. That's okay. Let's see. And again, because you're not actually putting anything in here, you're not making it into a shaker card or a, you know, anything like that. It doesn't have to butt up to the edges. Right. So if you were making it into a shaker card, you would need to have, that closed off there. So you could, I've got these pieces, I might as well use them. So you would need to make sure that there's no gaps in the tape like that, otherwise your bits will just fall out, which obviously you don't want that to happen. Let's see. Oh, there you go. Made use of it. Get all these pieces off. If I can. Oh, that's the little one. The nails. There we go. Now we're simply going to line this up, she says.